Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us to discuss our recently published paper, Practitioner's Guide for Proof of Reserves. I'm Amy Kim, Chief Policy Officer of the Chamber of Digital Commerce, and with me today are Noah Buxton with Armanino, Nick Carter with Castle Island Ventures, and Sal Ternello with KPMG. The question of, does my service provider actually hold my assets, becomes more interesting in a digital environment. In the virtual currency and digital asset space, how your assets are held and how to confirm that they remain at the exchange or custodian has become even more acute in light of differing ways to approach this issue and instances of cyber hacks and misappropriation. So let's kick this off. Nick, let me turn to you. What do we mean when we say proof of reserves?
Thanks, Amy. So this is actually kind of a challenging question because there hasn't been much formalization around the term historically, and that was one of the objectives of this document. So at its most simple, a proof of reserve is effectively a procedure whereby a digital asset platform, which holds assets on behalf of some customers, is proving to its customers and potentially to other interested stakeholders like regulatory groups or auditors or state entities that they hold assets equivalent to all the outstanding liabilities of the user deposits on that platform. So you're effectively trying to generate a cryptographic and accounting caliber proof that you are fully reserved, that you're not insolvent. And proof of reserve has been used to refer to many things, many of them sort of somewhat related. In our case, we're specifically talking about platforms. So in this paper, we talk about proof of platform reserves.
It sounds like a logical concept. Sal, where are we now, and why haven't we done this before?
So I think as we look back, there have been some kind of like in the wild implementations and early thinking around, how might we leverage the public nature and auditability of blockchain technology to be able to actually prove to customers, as Nick was describing, that exchanges or platforms holding assets on behalf of customers, actually do in fact have those assets under their control. And this is especially important in the context of, this Web3 world and public blockchains where, the finality of transactions is permanent and there is no recovery. And so there's obviously the point you raised around, the prevalence historically of cyber events and misappropriations of assets. And so when you couple kind of, especially in the early days, the maturing infrastructure and ecosystem to protect assets, the importance of organizations proving them became a differentiator for some early exchanges and organizations in the space. And so I think there's been some level of adoption of different implementations, proving reserves in different ways. And there's been really a lack of kind of a guiding principle or North Star as it relates to kind of putting some structure around a lot of great thinking that really originated back in 2012, 13. And formalizing that in a way that aligns to accounting expectations, to audit expectations, and ultimately becomes a basis of kind of furthering how we create transparency in this space. So, today I think we're hoping to formalize a lot of great work that's come before and put some structure around, how we might think about this in the context of platforms.
I mean, that seems to make a lot of sense, right? For consumers have confidence in their service providers and regulators feel comfortable that financial institutions are doing what they say they do. So Noah, how do we suggest in the paper to go about this challenge?
So we took great lengths to explain that. I think, maybe building on Sal's point a little bit, what we ultimately felt like we were compelled to do because we're passionate about this space and we want to see the right levels of trust and transparency among counterparties so that we can actually have the adoption that we all want, we had to take an approach that was respectful sort of to the seed ideas here, which came from early Bitcoiners. Frankly, this was a Bitcoin exchange problem to begin with, and has now evolved. But we had to be sort of respectful of that initial seed idea, but also be realistic and say, this is, alternative finance and traditional finance merging in many ways. And so some of these concepts from traditional finance, from the traditional assurance space, the audit and accounting space, they need to be layered in here. There's certainly, proponents in this space that would say, no, we don't need any of that. It's all cryptographic. It's all on chain, right? Those sort of arguments. But that's really not the case. Centralized custodians and exchanges, they do create pinch points, and they create lack of visibility in this ecosystem, and they create potentially trust gaps. There's lots of great players in the space that do their very best every day, right? A lot of chamber members included that I know, to make their systems transparent, to give the proper reporting to their customers, et cetera. But there are also those that don't. And even in a good faith world, there's still a lot more to be done when it comes to sending trust signals and proper reporting and sort of compliance documentation, I guess you could say even, to counterparties and customers. And so the approach we took was to, again, the seed ideas of actually using cryptography itself, actually using digital signatures to prove the existence of assets held by a custodian or exchange, married with a very interesting idea that you can actually have individual customers participate in this validation by actually participating and showing, yes, they were included in the set of liabilities that was weighed against the set of assets, right? Sort of this one-to-one relationship, ideally, that we're looking for between liability and asset. And then also, again, this traditional accounting or assurance layer of, using sort of AICPA or at least recognized reporting standards and audit standards to deliver some reporting around this proof of reserves engagement or this offer proof. So ultimately, this can still take different forms, and it's still up to the market to determine exactly what the approach is and exactly what resonates with constituents and participants in this market. But what we propose is sort of this three-part approach: digital signatures for assets, customers actually get to cryptographically participate in proving that they were, or validating that they were included in the proof of liabilities, and some industry standard reporting to wrap it all together.
That's a great way to think about it. And I think it makes that explanation is just so crisp and easy to understand. I guess my question then is, what are the next steps? What do we hope to accomplish by putting this paper out there? And I'll just open that up to the three of you.
Well, I can start. I think there's a paper like this has been long overdue in the industry, whether it came from the chamber or another industry body. I hadn't really seen any work truly formalizing the procedure and making it accessible and creating a rubric that these platforms could actually use. So my hope is that we see a wave of these digital asset custodians and platforms actually embracing the procedure and offering it to their end users. And I think that would dramatically increase confidence in these platforms that are taking on significant quantities of assets. We're talking double digits of all of the value collectively of digital assets outstanding that are held with these platforms. So my hope and perhaps even expectation would be the growth and popularity of this procedure, which is currently limited to a very small number of entities, and it's not standardized at all. So that would be my hope, and we'll see how it plays out.
So maybe I'll jump in second there, and I think Noah and I might be on a similar perspective given our backgrounds and organizations, but historically there's been kind of a lack of appreciation and understanding of these types of digital signatures and their ability to actually reduce audit risk while proving the control of an asset in the context of these public blockchains. And so, from my perspective, I think something that we hope to achieve here is to basically provide that rubric that Nick was describing, but to use that as the baseboard for having conversations with some of the standards organizations, the AICPA, the PCAOB, and introducing, a thoughtful discussion around how might we actually recognize these types of test approaches within the context of our established standards and frameworks. And I think that would be a meaningful step forward and signal to the market that, in addition to the differentiation you might achieve on the trust spectrum, there's also alignment to kind of the thinking that regulators will look to in the future. And as that regulatory kind of uptake occurs, there's going to be, an increased adoption of accounting organizations that can embrace these approaches and not, really, rely on outdated approaches to a modern technology.
Definitely on the same wavelength. Yeah, it sets the foundation for a lot of industry participants to think about digital assets differently, but definitely in our accounting profession allows us to, start embracing the tools that are available using the technology itself. I think, other quick predictions, I guess I would make, I think it's going to have a big impact on the regulatory space, I think, ultimately, because I think especially maybe US focused money transmission state regulators, will sort of realize what's possible. I think that this is a big point of concern for state regulators, and I don't think they have a great tool to get to what they want right now. The current mechanism is kind of a mix of capital reserve requirements and annual financial statement audits, which of course would include the balance sheet. But these custodial assets aren't always on the balance sheet. And I think we all know that given the volume and level of complexity here, an annual snapshot doesn't do nearly enough to give the level of comfort around reserves that we can deliver now with these types of tools. So I think that regulators learn what's possible. And I think that ultimately that's very good, because sure, cost of compliance will go up in the short term potentially, but I think ultimately cost of compliance comes down because of what Sal is saying, right? That more firms, more participants can provide this level of assurance. It's more standardized, as Nick said, and ultimately that sets a better foundation for transparency and trust in the market.
The three of you were such key motivators to making this paper reality. Just wanted to thank you for bringing your thought leadership and the countless hours that I know it took to make this happen.
Thanks for your sponsorship, and your partnership.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, to you and the team. And I would say there was a huge group of amazing contributors across so many different perspectives that made this happen. And they're all called out in the paper, so I won't run through them here, but this was truly a team effort from a diverse body of thinking, from the venture capital perspective, from the institutional finance perspective, from the accounting viewpoint. So I think really a good testament of collaboration across a bunch of folks trying to push something forward that could be meaningful. And I think will be. So.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.